the government is saying that they rescued 10 children who appeared to have been working at this cannabis farm, 8 of whom were unaccompanied minors. So you have a company now being investigated for breaking child labor law. And this is happening. The Biden administration actually lost track of an untold number of unaccompanied minors. So it's a great example of how it looks on the surface very ugly. Like, nobody wants to see migrants running from ICE, crying and having their lives upended. But they were trafficking children to work low-wage jobs in a cannabis field. Like, give me a break.
The big, beautiful bill being passed. What is your thoughts on that? We're defunding Planned Parenthood. And it's more than just defunding Planned Parenthood. It's defunding so many other things that they do inside their centers with gender transformations, as well as giving puberty blockers. What is your thoughts all on that issue?
Well, that's a big win, certainly. And any big, beautiful bill is going to have a lot of wins and losses because you're passing it via a process called reconciliation, which means that you have to haggle with the moderates and with the conservatives. So you have to get, in this case, Lisa Murkowski and Chip Roy to vote for the same piece of legislation. So politically, it was a feat that they pulled it off. Remarkable that they did it actually by the 4th of July, so Trump could sign it in his big ceremony. I think substantively, there are some really good conservative victories in it. I think the deficit is a real concern. I think there's a lot of optimism about what will happen with the tax cuts that I don't necessarily share the optimism of the administration on that question. Doesn't mean that I side with Elon Musk either, because I think it's a little naive to expect anything other than what happened when you have such slim majorities. But I do think that's a real concern. I think some of the immigration stuff is going to be a big boost to efforts to control the border and to shut down cartel trafficking. So I think there's some good news, some bad news. Ultimately, I think it's probably not going to be the political win that a lot of Republicans are feeling comfortable about now. I could go into that for a long time, but I'm just a pessimistic person. As a conservative, I'm sort of pessimistic. So I won't rain on everyone's parade.
Yeah, I know. That's one of my biggest problems. I'm like, I've got to be more optimistic about what's happening. I'm like, I'm sorry, but I'm not seeing it. But actually, we just saw, you mentioned the defunding of Planned Parenthood, which is great. But then you've got this activist judge. She was one of the same judges that tried to block something that the DOJ was trying to get through for these illegal aliens. And she's temporarily blocked the defunding of Planned Parenthood, which is not even defunding Planned Parenthood. It's like defunding Planned Parenthood for a year. It started with 10 years and then it went down to 1 year. And now it's temporarily blocked from even happening at all. So I'm curious your thoughts on that, because this is the judges blocking Planned Parenthood, or this defunding of Planned Parenthood. This is not the first time. I mean, we've got these activist rogue judges blocking a principle after principle that President Trump is trying to get through. And so I'm curious your response beyond just the blocking of this resolution in the One Big Beautiful Bill, but all that these activist judges are trying to block.
Well, Planned Parenthood is a really good example. And I hadn't seen that news. It doesn't surprise me, but Planned Parenthood's federal funding, they see it as crucial because it's a significant swath of their funding. Yeah. But if ultimately the federal government were to stop, and money is fungible, and that's Planned Parenthood says they don't get, whatever. Their money is fungible. Let's just put it that way. They get a lot of private support. Yeah. They get a lot of support from very wealthy people and their organizations. And so Planned Parenthood, in the broader sense, isn't going anywhere because it's defunded federally. Now, that doesn't mean it isn't a massive victory for conservatives, but it does mean that just holding the levers of power for 4 years, while it's important, it's not as important as shifting the culture that feeds the demand for Planned Parenthood. And so I understand the problem with these nationwide injunctions that the Supreme Court recently pushed back on. And I think that was a very good decision from the Supreme Court. I think Elena Kagan herself is on the record saying there are problems with nationwide injunctions. And then unfortunately, she opposed the majority decision. But there are so many deeper issues on a lot of these cases. Immigration is one of them, right? Like, Biden let, at minimum, probably 8 million new people into the country that are now living in deeply precarious situations where they don't know if they will become citizens. They don't know if they should plant their roots in different communities. And that's not good for any of those communities, that you just have a bunch of people who don't know if they're visitors or if they're permanent or how to live their lives. How can they make money under the table, it is a disaster. And, these judges, things are going on a seesaw right now, but the fundamental is unchanged, and that's that we have like 8 million new people, and we're not dealing with that really at all.
Yeah. What would you say to all of the people who, conservatives especially, looking at these illegal immigrants and wanting to feel empathetic for them and their families, but at the same time they came over committing an illegal act? What would you say to them, as well as looking at these ICE raids and attacking, these ICE people doing their job, and making America safer again for children, for women? What would you say to all of that?
Well, I'll start with one of the things that I've actually said to my friends on the left, which is because the Biden administration let in millions and millions and millions of new people, the Trump administration, if you agree that that needs to be dealt with, that the 8 million plus new people needs to be dealt with something that's not just blanket amnesty, then you have to admit the Trump administration is in an incredibly difficult position right now. That doesn't excuse anything that, I'm conservative. I hate seeing the excesses of like the police state. I don't like that. So it doesn't excuse ICE like using new surveillance tools or anything like that, or abusing those things. But it does mean that it's going to be a very ugly process if we want to do some of take some of the necessary steps to deal with a very, very ugly problem. For conservatives, we do need to remember that the Biden administration actually funneled many of these migrants through legal pathways. I did a reporting trip to northern Mexico, and I think it was 2021 or 2022, and was looking at the papers of Haitians in particular. At one, I was at a center for migrants, and they're showing me the papers that they had been given by the American government. And they were allowed to claim asylum and wait in the country for years. You're supposed to be, according to the law that Biden modified, you're supposed to be detained while you wait an asylum claim. It's supposed to be a pretty easy thing to suss out, whether you have what's called credible fear. And so a lot of these people actually have full legal status while they wait. They're not citizens. But they're allowed to wait. And so what the Trump administration needs to do, obviously, is accelerate the process. And that's part of what they passed in the big, beautiful bill, is more funding for that process. But it's a disaster, partially because the way the Biden administration got so many new people into the country was by letting them come legally. And that is, it was a huge giveaway to the cartels, who trafficked every single one of those people. Every single one of them. I was talking to a man at a migrant facility in northern Mexico, and he said every single one of them is trafficked. They all came, and that's all about $10,000 on average to the cartel. Every single one of those 8 million people. And so it's a complete disaster. It's a disaster for Trump to have to deal with, for any administration to have to deal with. And part of the problem is that so many people are actually here with legal status. Now, last point, just in the last 24 hours, we saw what the media was showing clips of that looked like a really ugly ICE raid on a cannabis farm in Ventura County, outside of Santa Barbara, but Ventura County, California. And the media reports were like, look at this. You see migrants sprinting through the fields. They're just trying to do their jobs. Well, the government is saying that they rescued 10 children who appeared to have been working at this cannabis farm, 8 of whom were unaccompanied minors. So you have a company now being investigated for breaking child labor law. And this is happening. The Biden administration actually lost track of an untold number of unaccompanied minors. So it's a great example of how it looks on the surface very ugly. Like, nobody wants to see migrants running from ICE, crying and having their lives upended. But they were trafficking children to work low-wage jobs in a cannabis field. Like, give me a break.
That's right. Yeah, Emily, I'm super grateful for what you're doing. And I think you mentioned this in the beginning, and how I think in the conservative movement and politics, we approach things from a very emotional, we saw it and we're reacting right away, instead of approaching things from a more rational, logical standpoint. So I appreciate that side of you. You don't really get that much in the political movement and the conservative movement, because a lot of things are just very like, I saw this video, I'm reacting right away. And I think we're all kind of guilty of that.
Totally.
It's just human nature. But I appreciate that logical approach. How can people find you? How can they support your work and check out your very logical approach to what's happening in culture?
Well, that's really nice. Thank you, because that's definitely something that I try to do. Just started a new show with MK Media. So Megyn Kelly's company is called After Party. Mondays and Wednesdays, live at 10 p.m. And then I write for Unheard, a great publication, and also am a host over at Breaking Points.
That's
So
awesome.
cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah.